Technology is improving so fast that I don't think the culture of the people working in the business is adapting quickly enough.
From a single property in Dublin back in 2004 to over 34 locations across 19 major European cities, Staycity has redefined how we travel.
And they're not slowing down. Staycity Group is on track to reach an incredible 11,000 keys by 2023, making them one of the fastest growing apart hotel groups.
We're on location in Vienna, at the newest wild aparthotel, sitting down with Paolo, who's been instrumental in Staycity's incredible growth over the past 7 years. In this episode, we're diving into what makes that success possible from a technical and operational perspective, and how the team keeps everything running across Europe.
Alright, let's hear it from Paolo.
Paolo, thanks so much for inviting me over to the brand new wild location in the center of Vienna. Really appreciate it.
Hi Jason, welcome. This is the latest and newest of the wild brand at Staycity, so we're very proud of this property.
And it's almost a 200-year-old property, such a historic landmark.
This is quite special, even for our standards. This is special. It was built in 1850. It's 22,000 square meters, 137 rooms. It's a very historic building. We have a fabulous courtyard, some spectacular rooms. It's a crown jewel of our estate at the moment.
Amazing. And you feel it when you walk in. You're just like, wow, this is cool.
It's very difficult to find in the Vienna city center places that can host families. So we have big rooms where you can host 4 or 5 people. It's quite spectacular actually. So it's a bit of a playful luxury boutique sort of experience. Witty, comfortable. We're very, very proud of this property.
And I just want to zoom out and take a step back, because we started on this AI journey 2 years ago when GPT-4 first released. And it's easy now to look back and say, oh, that was obvious, but it wasn't obvious back then. In fact, I do remember when we went from GPT 3.5, that's where the world saw ChatGPT first. And everyone's like, wow, this is going to change everything, to GPT-4. And I remember looking at the cost of those tokens, and everything that we did cost €2. And it's just like, is this going to work? Is this going to scale? Can we even build a business on top of it? But I think where I want to go to is that you saw this coming. It was 2 years ago, and you had the foresight to just say, I'm going to go ahead with this. So I want to get into that mindset to say, what were you thinking?
You're very generous in your assessment. I think foresight wasn't really there. I believe as a company, we want to take a few bets. So it's obvious that AI and technology are going to drive operational efficiency, competitiveness, and hospitality generally has always been behind. There's some statistics of mid-sized companies between EU and the US. 90% of them are on the path of AI adoption. However, only 35-40% have a live product or use AI in production. And when I looked at the subset of companies that are in hospitality, actually between 6 and 11% of hospitality companies are behind. And I think it's part of my job as CIO to try to bring a little bit of that competitive advantage. So we decided as a company to place some small bets here and there. And, this being one of them, that it's proving to be fairly successful.
Amazing. And in terms of just to go back, to put ourselves in the shoes of the 2023 us, without perfect information, how did you go about decision making? Because what I saw at some other properties is they formed committees, and these committees issued a RFP, and they went out to 20 people with the RFP. And what happens is then the committee tends to argue and decide among themselves. But essentially what they're doing is they're hedging their personal risk. Because if the project doesn't work out, they want to be able to distance themselves and say, look, we made a decision together. It wasn't my fault, in other words. So how did and you stepped up, you took leadership here. And how did that work out?
Staycity is let's call it a medium-sized business. We employ about 1,500 people across 40 properties. And we're heavily centralized. We have about 150 people in headquarters. However, at heart, we're a startup that's grown a bit too big. And so we don't reason as a corporate entity. We value agility. We value, taking some risks, some bets, as I said. So we don't really care about covering our, we just want to go do things, see what works, failing fast. My past is in software development before, joining Staycity. So I'm very used to that kind of agile, fail fast, quick iterative process. It isn't as fast as a technology company in hospitality, obviously, but we're probably starting to be a bit faster than the old guard, I would say. So, there's a level of committee, there's a level of buy-in, because we start talking about decent size investments in technology. But we try to shy away from that. So the ability to have a management team that doesn't blame failure, I think, it's very important. So it's a management team that wants to know truly what works and what doesn't work. And that filters through in our culture in being very metric driven. So as you know, in big companies, there's a lot of opinions. I think we should do X, Y, and Z. And we try always to put a number against the initiatives. So numbers don't lie. So we try to stay close to the truth, close to reality, and honest, keep ourselves honest at every decision point.
Amazing. So it sounds like a cultural angle as well, where kind of the leadership is looking at these new initiatives and saying, okay, let's try it out here. Let's do this, let's do that. And I guess to a certain extent, AI is coming from the top because it's a bit risky to adopt it from the bottom. So you don't want your employees plugging all your data into any new AI tool that releases. So there has to be some guardrails, I guess.
It's a cultural journey more than a technological journey to a certain extent. So we're rolling out paid ChatGPT licenses to all knowledge workers. Right. And this is a funny thing. I was in talks with the OpenAI sales representative for a big number of licenses, and they said, we see X hundred of your employees already have OpenAI licenses not paid for. They obviously go and trade their model and so on. So you see that, curious people, great employees, will try to be modern and to be efficient on their own. Yeah. So you just need to create the culture and the infrastructure in the business so that you leverage that rather than trying to stifle it.
Yeah. And I just want to take one step back here because you mentioned something interesting a while ago. You said my background is in software engineering.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about your background? And I want to know, how does that background factor in this AI journey right now?
Yes. So I started as a software developer 25 years ago. I had a software as a service company myself, which I've grown and sold in the language school kind of sort of business. I then joined a venture-backed company called homestay.com, which is a sort of Airbnb, sell your room, and that's how I got into the sort of hospitality space. That company grew a bit and then didn't, quite grow as much, and that's when I joined Staycity, where my interest for travel and hospitality comes from. In terms of where that plays a role in the AI journey, I think just as any techie, you see problems, you see processes to automate, and when you see the ability of AI to understand patterns from large quantity of information that we do have access to in Staycity, you just see the possibilities of all the processes and all the things that could be automated and make us faster in decision making and so on. We use AI in places in Staycity. Think forecasting of housekeeping costs. So housekeeping is generally a high cost for hospitality businesses, and being able to forecast that correctly and to model how much it's going to cost, it's an important factor in keeping your company very profitable. And what better than machine learning and AI, and just throw all the data and see patterns that humans wouldn't be able to spot.
Yeah. And do you care about the difference between machine learning and Gen AI? Because to a certain extent, the way I look at it, like sitting on the outside from a software developer mindset, machine learning's been around for years at this point in time. Hotels have been doing revenue management for ages, and machine learning kind of depends on the amount of data that you feed in. And I think what's changing right now is Gen AI allows that language element to come in and speak to your data, not only with just like numbers, models, stuff like that. So what I've noticed, and this is going to all of the hotel conferences, every single thing is an AI company. I was at High Tech in the US a few months ago, and I kid you not, they had an AI rodent catcher. with dashboards and stuff like that, right? So you're like, I don't need AI to catch rodents, but so how do you filter that out?
There's obviously a hype now and everything's called AI between heuristics, machine learning, Gen AI, the different categories. Do we care? To a certain extent, I care as a technology leader in the company because I want to make sure that I set up the correct structure for a given problem. If a problem that we're trying to solve is very deterministic, we'll go towards heuristics and machine learning, obviously. If it's less deterministic, Gen AI might be applicable if there's a lot of text and so even the setup of having a human in the loop or not having a human in the loop and what you're tackling, you just need to know what is the correct representation. And you need management and the different departments to understand which flavor of AI is best suited to a certain problem. So for that, I think the education part, when everyone has got access to AI, is very important in the business. You get someone say, oh, can we run payroll with ChatGPT? Until you have a level of hallucination or you don't have a human in the loop infrastructure set in place, you just need to be a little bit careful.
I know what you mean. And in terms of just when do you start building something yourself as well? Because you've got projects that you run in-house, some where you work with external people. Do you ever think okay, this is a small little process, I'm just going to use ChatGPT and get it done, versus saying, okay, this is something bigger, maybe we should work with someone to do it? Where is that line when it comes to build versus buy?
Build versus buy is always a big question. Let's start from, let's call it first principles, right? We're a hotel business. We're a aparthotel business. We're not a software development company. So we would have a preference in buying services from someone that does that for a living and that can spread the cost of building the tool or the system across a multitude of customers. Unless we identify that specific problem to be specific to us or to be the ROI to be high enough to justify the cost of building. That said, it's very hard to find suppliers that both give you the solution to the problem that you have and integrate with a multitude of systems that you have. So one key attribute for a supplier for us is to be able to plug into our ticket management system, our property management system, into all the things. Because an isolated system, regardless of how good it is, if it doesn't talk, if the plumbing is not there, the usefulness, drops very quickly.
What do you mean? Yeah.
There are areas of the business where potentially a build would make sense. It could be, for example, we do a lot of feasibility studies, so we go through 500, 600, 700 sites where we could build a hotel per year, and only a handful ends up being, signings and build. So that funnel of saying, okay, we have a site, this is, draw a floor plan, how many rooms can we put here, how many floors, and get that iterative process. And that could be a tool that is a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Or picking the right location, picking the right, would have a cascade effect, obviously, on how profitable that property is for 20, 25 years going forward. So these are processes where maybe you say, this should be, just our own, our own IP, let's say.
Yeah, and I guess you've also invested a lot into your booking engine because that's quite a slick, custom-built piece of software.
Yeah. We started about 3 years ago, and we rebranded both Staycity, which is our urban brand, and Wild, which is our luxury lifestyle boutique brand. We wanted 2 different websites, and we wanted to push for direct sales. Now, every hotelier wants to push for direct sales, and one key for that for us was to have a very highly converting website that we can fine-tune. So we decided to rebuild the booking engine our own. We did a business case. It seemed to make sense if we could achieve a 10-15% improvement in conversion on the website that will pay off and will make the unit of economics work. We've done it, and we overachieved in terms of conversion. So we're now pushing on the marketing side and performance marketing. So the PPC, then above the line, and all the marketing team has grown in the past and is proving a very fruitful endeavor so far.
Yeah, and I think you've even gone further than most people go because you've also built a portal where people can kind of self-service these guest journey tasks, like online check-in and cancellations and stuff like that. Is that something that you think is core to the business? Will it feed nicely into the AI side of things? Because AI is not going to be able to self-check-in, right?
Absolutely. If I take a step back, right, as a company, we're customer focused and we want to provide the customers with all the tools of what they need. And sometimes you know how stressful it is. You book a hotel, you want to cancel, you want to add a day, you want to remove a day, and you want those interactions to be uber quick. At the moment, we have a customer care team. You can self-serve, but it's always quite stressful. I want to add a night, I want to cancel, I don't find the right login. Now, AI and Gen AI are showing us how the interface between humans and computers are becoming, more seamless. Like you use natural language, either voice or chat. And ChatGPT obviously is turning everyone to do any task via chat as a single interface. So the vision will be to be able to hook that interface, that chatbot, D3X in our case, with abilities, with maybe MCP servers or tooling, so that guests can self-serve and can do whatever they need to do as quickly, as reliably as they can. And that will be a win-win situation because the customer fundamentally will be able to do whatever they need to do seamlessly, and it'll be an operational efficiency piece for the company as well. We have our customer care team, many languages, 10 different languages, in German, Italian, and French. But what if you are from the Middle East? What if you are, South American? And if you're Japanese, we don't have Japanese-speaking colleagues at the moment.
Yeah.
So 24/7, multilingual, instant responses. That's
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Paolo, just to switch gears, what keeps you up at night right now? What do you, in terms of a technology point of view, or anything else actually, what worries you and what are you thinking about?
Okay, well, there's a few things. I'll mention some that, fortunately, don't keep me up at night, but probably should. AI is going to replace jobs, right? That's kind of the elephant in the room, and some people just don't want to mention it. And we're in a very lucky position in Staycity. We're a growing company. We're going to grow 3x in the next few years. We're signing a lot of new deals. We're opening a lot of new hotels. So it's very unlikely that we'll reduce our workforce. But what we will do is we'll try to not grow headcount linearly with the growth of the company. Okay? So doing more and more with the same amount of people that we have. But that's something that might keep other companies awake at night, because if you're in customer service team, you might be worried of automation taking your job away. The two things that are worrying me are actually cybersecurity. Yeah, the scams we see. We spend quite a lot on cybersecurity, but I can see the scams are getting more and more sophisticated in the age of AI. So the education and training programs and making sure that everyone is up to speed with the new techniques, that's something that worries me. And the other thing is actually not technological, it's cultural. Technology is improving so fast that I don't think the culture of the people working in the business is adapting quickly enough. So how can I, in my position, create training programs and foster curiosity across all the departments so that they can break down their jobs into tasks and then think, where can I apply, replace a given task? So don't think about the whole jobs, like not being replaced completely, but which tasks can we delegate to AI? Which decisions can we delegate to AI? And I think that cultural transition is something that's very difficult for medium and big companies.
Yeah, and there are many jobs that humans actually don't want to do. So for example, I was just chatting with another client of ours in Berlin. They've got 12 properties, and we're working on a feature where we can kind of generate new invoices, because German customers have very strict standards when it comes to invoices, and they're like, my VAT number is not on the invoice, my company address is wrong, my company name is wrong. And in order to achieve that, we have to actually void the invoice, issue a credit note, create a new bill against the credit note, and then generate a new invoice. And that takes someone a lot of time to do that from a human point of view. And nobody gains any satisfaction from doing that, so much so that the customer was telling us, like, if you get this done, my team is going to send you flowers every Monday. because they're going to love you for that. So I don't think anyone's worried about automation when it comes to invoice generation. But something interesting that you did a few weeks ago, months ago, is you created a new role in your organization for an AI product manager, program manager. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's the essence of that human in the loop structure. People used to look after, let's say, customer queries, or what time is your check-in? Do you have in-house laundry? Do you have this, do you have that? Instead of replying, now those people need to be the managers of a system that replies automatically to the mundane queries. So having someone that project manages the knowledge base, the review, the performance is key, and in particular now for the D3X platform, but many other platforms. And what we're seeing is that sub-department is going to grow out of my team specific for AI initiatives. We're doing other little bets. So for example, we have a large data warehouse team where, as you said, we're heavily data driven. We collect a lot of information for different departments and different systems. But it's very hard for a company of 1,500 people to access that information. Writing new reports in Power BI, in Data Lake, and ETLs takes a long time. So how do you increase the data literacy? And we're now adopting a platform that is a chat to SQL transformation. So you can ask any question in natural language, and that automatically generates a query appropriate with a semantic layer into our data warehouse and star schema, and spits out an answer. So that's one of the steps, right, of lowering the barrier to access to data.
And I think it's another instance, and mark my words, Paolo's probably two years ahead of the curve here as well. Like just thinking about an AI sub-department is very interesting. I think more organizations should be thinking that way and thinking about kind of bringing the team along on the journey as well. Now, in terms of your North Star, since you're like so far out in the open, what is there any hospitality brand that you look to for your North Star? What are you looking for in terms of when you build out this company? What is the end goal here?
I don't have a specific one. However, there are a new wave of hospitality businesses. They're even more tech forward than we are at the moment. Staffless operations like BW, Numa, Citizen has been for a long time ahead of the curve in terms of the adoption of technology. So we can't claim to be there. We have less tech in the room, for example. That's not something that we have particularly believed in over the years. But we want to be world-class in efficiency, in profitability, in customer satisfaction.
Amazing. And just as we wind up, I want to ask you a simple question, like what new trend are you checking into? And what trend do you think you're checking out of? Because
customer data platforms, I think, for marketing, that's something we looked at. We haven't really jumped on that bandwagon. We believe that brand will trump hyper personalization. We obviously want to have a great view of the customer, great analytics, but we've seen over-investment in customer data platforms. They're very expensive tools on $500,000, $1 million a year, not pay back as much. Right. Okay, so that's something that we stay away from. Mobile door locks, it's something that we want to do, but not right now because adoption is still poor and the experience is not as quick as seamless. So we've done all those trials. So CDP, mobile keys, and I think just going back to having chat interface to most features and most systems. So what I might mention is that there's a chatbot for guests, but it could be internal chatbots. So I'll give an example, obviously to query the data warehouses, I'll repeat that one. But also, let's imagine you're in the finance team. We have payroll for 1,500 people. There's definitely employees that have questions about their payroll and say, oh, what is this, what is that? And so imagine how many of those queries go into the central finance team. What if a chatbot could answer 50, 60, 70% of those questions without human intervention? So, you have internal customers for Gen AI chatbots as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. So maybe we covered those, yeah?
Podcast on those 3 points that you just mentioned right now.
Thank you. It took me a little while to make up.
No, but thank you so much for your time, Paolo. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to continue working with you.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.